I think it has been almost over a year since we have been discussing Canto 4. So finally today we will start with Canto 5. So we'll start with the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadanti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Garangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमां विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी भाष्यदेशकारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे ओम विष्णुदाय विष्णु कृष्ण with Canto 5. So before starting Canto 5, we would like to revisit like what are the things we have seen till here in Srimad Bhagavatam and what are the topics we'll be covering hereafter. So in Canto 1, Sukadeva Goswami mentions all the topics which are being discussed in this Srimad Bhagavatam Purana. So he says, Atra sarga visargascha sthanam poshanam utaya manavantare ishanukata nirodha muktir ashraya. So he's mentioning here all the 10 topics which would be discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. So he says, Atra Sarga Visarga. So he's telling, okay, hereafter, so we'll be discussing about Sarga and Visarga. So Sarga is the primary creation and Visarga is the secondary creation. So basically, the creation which is done by the Supreme Lord is Sarga. So we have already seen how material world, Mahavishnu appears and from the pores of his skin, there are different Brahmandas, and then we have Kshirodaksaya Vishnu, Garbhodaksaya Vishnu, and then how Lord Brahma is created from the navel of Garbhodaksaya Vishnu. And then with all the elements, all the 24 elements which we have discussed in detail in second canto, Brahma uses them to create the secondary creation, which is nothing but creation of the 14 planetary systems and inducing it with all the living entities. So that is Visarga. And then comes Sthanam, where herein, actually in fifth canto, we will be discussing about the planetary systems, how the universe is created and what are the positions of different planetary systems. Then it is Poshanam. So especially in sixth canto, we'll see. how the Supreme Lord gives Poshanam to different living entities. So where he is giving protection. So especially the story of Ajamil and saving Lord Indra. So all these stories they come under Canto 6, which is part of Poshanam. So where the Supreme Lord is showing his causeless mercy, protecting his devotees. And after that, we see in Canto 7 especially, the topic of Utaya is discussed, which is basically the inclination of living entity. So it can be demoniac or it can be uh, towards devotional service of the Supreme Lord. So we especially see the episodes of Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, and Prahlad Maharaj. And thereafter we see Manvantara. So there are different Manus which are described in further cantos. And then we see Isha Anukata where different incarnations and activities of Supreme Lord is discussed. And in 11th and 12th canto, we see the topics of Nirodha and Mukti, which is how the living entity or the universe is annihilated and how one can get mukti or liberation. And then in the 10th canto, which deals with the topic of Ashraya. So basically, the whole Srimad Bhagavatam goes in a particular manner where all these topics are discussed, and ultimately, the aim is to take the ashray of the Supreme Lord. So, in order to understand the topic of ashraya, or in order to completely understand the process of ashraya towards the Supreme Lord, so it is required for all of us to understand these topics in the sequential manner, sarga, visarga, and then
Hare Krishna Prabhu, we lost you.
Prabhu, we lost.
Yeah, bro.
Saumya Prabhu, we are not able to hear you anything. They disconnected
I
also.
think connection issue.
so if he suggests something, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna Prabhu, in between we lost
you're
you.
able to hear me, Prabhu?
Yeah, now we
Now
can hear you.
Okay.
we lost
Okay.
in between,
Mm,
Prabhu. We are just not hearing.
11th and 12th canto, you were saying that that was after that we could not hear you.
okay. So, Prabhu, the power has come. Is it okay if I can switch to my
Sure, Prabhu.
this
No
network?
issues.
So, I
Yeah,
think it will be.
That will be better, Prabhu. Yeah.
yeah, that will
Oh,
be
I
better.
think it is already connected. My phone is already connected to the network.
Okay, Prabhu.
Yeah. So, is it okay now? Because now I see.
Yes. It looks
Okay.
okay.
So, in 11th and 12th canto, we see the discussion happening about dissolution and liberation. And in 10th canto, we see the topic of Ashraya, how to completely surrender to the Supreme Lord is discussed. So it is important for us to go through Srimad Bhagavatam through all the topics, before we jump to the Krishna Leela, which are discussed in Canto 10, which really helps a sadhaka or a practicing devotee to completely surrender to the Supreme Lord. So I was giving a crude example, like if someone comes to your home and if they suggest you something, it becomes very difficult for us to take their suggestions if we don't know about them. If you know that he is a great personality, no, then he is a very big, powerful person. Probably he's achieved a lot in materialistically and spiritually, and we come to know the past tense. Probably the incidents which have happened in his person's life and what he has gone through. Then probably we may give heed to his instructions or whatever he suggests. So similarly, if we have to surrender to the Supreme Lord, it is very, very important for us to understand Supreme Lord as a personality. So that's why you see, no, even in Padma Puran or even I think in last canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said how the different cantos are like the limbs of the Lord. So the first canto no, they start with the lotus feet of the Lord, then the thighs of the Lord, then the navel of the Lord. So all these cantos, and then ultimately the 10th canto is described to be the face of the Lord. So, in order for us to appreciate the beauty of the Supreme Lord, it is very much required for us to go through all these topics. So, especially the fifth canto, this falls under the navel of the Supreme Lord. So, here we are trying to discuss the topics which are compared to the navel of the Supreme Lord. So, this is about briefly about what are the different topics which I discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. So now we'll try to see, no, in the last few cantos, no, we have been discussing the lineage of Swayambhuva Manu. So we have discussed about uh, Devahuti. So especially in Canto 3, from where this topic starts. So we see that Brahma, so after the primary creation is created and Lord Brahma is given the task of creating secondary creation, so he progenites. So Narad Muni, and then he gives birth to many children, thinking that they would help him in the progeny of the Brahmanda. But ultimately, it is Swayambhuva Manu and Satarupa who actually takes the responsibility. So, so our discussion of lineage of Swayambhuva Manu starts from third canto, and in third canto we see the descriptions of Swayambhuva Manu and Satarupa, and then we see they have children. So they have uh, two sons and three daughters. So Priyavrata and Uttanapada are the sons, and Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. They are the three daughters of the Swayambhuva Manu. And we get to see the descriptions of first initially in Canto 3 about Devahuti and Kardamuni. So, and then after that, we get to see the descriptions of uh, Prasuti and Daksha, right? Especially in fourth canto, there are so many chapters which are describes about Daksha, Lord Shiva, then his wife Sati. So we can see so many things in Canto 3 and sorry, in Canto 4, right. So in Canto 4, we see how after these episodes of Sati and Lord Shiva, then we come to the descriptions of Dhruv Maharaj. So Dhruv Maharaj is actually son of Uttanapad. So we have already discussed the three daughters of Swayambhu Manu, and then we see the descriptions of Uttanapad, who is the younger son of uh, Swayambhuva Manu. In that context, we see the story of Dhruv Maharaj, and then we see the story of Prithu Maharaj, and then ultimately we have seen how no, there is a king Anga who is very pious, and then he gets a son Veena who is very crooked. And then we have seen the descriptions of how Prithu Maharaj is born, who is none other than Saktesha avatar of the Supreme Lord, and then how his sons, Prachetas, right? So they go for tapasya, they meet Lord Shiva, and we have seen Rudra Geet being spoken by Lord Shiva to Prachetas. So this is what we have seen until now in Canto 4. So in Canto 5, because now after Prachetas, we are not able to find any suitable king to be ruled. And then everybody realizes that Swayambhuva Manu has an elder son, Priyavrata. So in this canto 5, we would see how Priyavrata he takes over ruling the world, and then there are descriptions of his son Angidra and then his son Nadi. Then in this context, we also see descriptions about Rishabh Dev and Bharat Maharaj. So we also see the complete story of Bharat Maharaj getting attached to deer and then taking birth as a deer, and then finally taking birth as Jada Bharat. So after this, so these are like up to 15 chapters of fifth canto. We'll be seeing the lineage of Swayambhuva Manu. So almost from canto 3 to canto 5th, up to 15th chapter, we would see the complete lineage of Swayambhu Manu being discussed. And then in the rest of the part of canto 5th, we will be seeing the cosmic geography. So, how the Bhumandala is created, the planetary systems, and descriptions of the different planetary systems. So, that is the second half of canto 5. So today we'll be looking into Canto 5, Chapter 1. So till here we have understand what things have happened. So here in Canto 5, Chapter 1, we see it starts with the Parikshit Maharaj questioning about Priyavrata. So Parikshit Maharaj is asking questions to Sukadeva Goswami about King Priyavrata, and then we see um, how Sukadeva Goswami glorifies the devotional service, and then we see Lord Brahma. He has to come to convince Priyavrata to become king and rule the world. And then we see from 20 to 35 how King Priyavrata rules the kingdom, and then finally in the end of the chapter we see how he realizes, repents, and then he renounces. So these are the broadly the summary of this chapter. So we'll go through shloka probably set by set, if not one by one. So in the first shloka, if we see, so this is a question. No? So the Srimad Bhagavatam is a dialogue between, it is like a podcast, like in the modern world, in YouTube channels. Today the people are very much interested in listening to podcasts. So why the dialogue between two persons is very important, because when there are two intellectual persons and when they do dialogue, so there is a lot of things the world can know actually, right? So this is about like 5,000 years back, where the podcast has happened. So we see here, Parikshit Maharaj is questioning. So he starts this chapter with a question. So he says, Raja Uvacha Priyavrato Bhagavata Atmaram Tatam Mune Griye Ramata Yanmula Karma Bandha Parabhava. So he's questioning this Priyavrata, King Priyavrata, who is a great devotee. He is Atmaram. So how did a devotee like Priyavrata has taken to Grihastha, Grihastha ashram, which is actually the cause of suffering in this material world, and it actually defeats the purpose of a human life actually. So this is a very genuine question, coming from Parishit Maharaj, because if we look at uh, the lineage of Manu, so Priyavrata is the eldest son, but we see that Uttanpad has ruled the world. After him, Dhruv Maharaj has ruled the world. Then we see so many kings who come, Anga, Veena, Prithu Maharaj, Prachetas. So you can see, so there are thousands and thousands of years have passed, but Priyavrata, uh, being elder son, who should be actually the king, but because he gets association of Narad Muni and he does a lot of tapasya. So we know like how Narad Muni trains his Shishyas, no? They are very strong. So Priyavrata during his time, so he denied of taking the responsibility of ruling the world. So that's when Uttanpad actually starts ruling, or he becomes the king. So now, after all these years have passed, so now everybody is remembering. But it is probably the Swayambhu Manu who is recollecting that no, Priyavrata is there, and he is the only suitable person to become king. And here Parikshit Maharaj is asking, Priyavrata is such a great renounced person. He is Atmaram. So why did he take to this Griha? No, because this grahast ashram is actually the root cause of this karma bandhana. He mentions here karma bandhana, and So there's a root cause actually. So why did he take up to this uh, grihastha life? So this is the question which he's posing to Sukadeva Goswami. So here in purport, uh, Prabhupada is explaining that it is not wrong that one should not enter grihastha life, but someone who has controlled and who is renounced, he need not go through the process of household life. See, ultimately, the aim is to surrender to the Lord completely without any material desires. So that is aim of a Manusha Janma. But if someone is not able to completely surrender immediately to the Supreme Lord, then he is advised to take to Grihasthashram so that he can, in a regulated manner, enjoy or fulfill his material desires and also come to a realization that material desire fulfilling material desires itself would not make a person happy. So this is in Hindi, right? So बातों के भूत लातों से मानते हैं, something like that, right? So someone who is not able to understand through words, then he has to go through some tough situations to understand it practically. So so here we should understand that Maharaj Priyavrata is not under a category where he takes to renunciation because he is not self-controlled, right? So generally, anyone who's taking to Grihastha ashram, so because they don't have self-control and they want to slowly progress in God realization, so that's why they. So here, Prabhupada is mentioning that no, it is not wrong to enjoy household life, but as per the situation of a person, like if his mind is not completely engrossed in devotion service, then there is no other option. So if he has to progress on spiritual path, then he has to get married, get into Grihastha ashram, and then slowly realize the Supreme Lord. And it is not very common, right? In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that Manusyanam saharseshu kashchid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kashin mam veti takti. So, out of thousands and thousands of people, there is one who endeavors to know the Supreme Lord. And out of thousands and thousands of such people, ultimately there is one who actually comes to know Lord Krishna in truth. So, if you look into these propositions which Lord Krishna himself is describing in Bhagavad Gita, so it is very rare for a person to immediately take up to celibate life and completely surrender to the Supreme Lord. So that's why the grace life is given for a person to slowly progress. But in case of Priyavrata, it is not the case where we think that okay, because we want to slowly progress, he has taken to Grihastha life. So that is why there is this big question, which Parikshit Maharaj is having, that how a devotee at his stature, of his caliber, he is taking to Grihastha life. And he further says that no, for a devotee who is completely liberated, no, it is impossible to be absorbed in family life, right? It is very common, right? So someone who is renounced, someone who's at a level of Uttamadhikari, if you just ask that person uh, to take up to the family life, it becomes next to impossible. That person can really not agree to this proposition of taking up to Grihastha life. So that's why here Parikshit Maharaj is mentioning that devotees who are liberated, it is not possible for them to take up to Grihastha life. And we see that in Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna says that no one has to ultimately surrender to me, right? And only through bhakti they can know me. So without the process of bhakti, one cannot know the Supreme Lord. So that's why we see these questions of Parikshit Maharaj. They are very very genuine. So he also says in the next verse that Mahatma. So the great elevated devotees, who are completely surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord, uh, they cannot be possibly, attached to the family or family members. So how is that? No, King Priyavrata, he got attached to his wife, home, children, and then how did he achieve this infallible position where uh, he's not falling from, where he is not falling from the devotional service to the Supreme Lord? Or it says Krishna cha matir achyuta. So he has attained the highest form of devotion. So these are the questions, which Parikshit Maharaj he poses from verses 1 to 4, and from fifth, especially in fifth and sixth, Sukadeva Goswami he answers. So he answers very beautifully that no, anyone who is attached. So he says, whatever you're saying is correct, Parikshit Maharaj, because someone who has been attached to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, and who is so eloquent in performing devotional service, who is very good at choosing the shlokas and performing, praising the Supreme Lord. No, they cannot be checked. Their progress cannot be checked. So it may seem that okay, for time being, they are not absorbed, but no, their position cannot be removed. That's what he says. So it is very similar to what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita in 9.31. So he tells to Arjuna that Kaunteya pratijananti name bhaktya pranashyati. So he says, you declare to the world that my devotees will never perish at all. So here on the similar lines, we see Sukadeva Goswami is mentioning that one who is attached to the nectarian lotus feet of the Lord and whose mind is always absorbed in his glories may sometimes be checked by some impediments, but will still never give up the exalted position he has acquired. So by this we can understand that even devotees or sadhakas, when they are practicing devotional service, so it may seem for some time that they are not behaving as per the qualities of devotees, or we may see that their progress to devotional service have been checked for some time. But we should not, what to say, demean such devotees, right? So in purport, Prabhupada mentions that there are only two kinds of impediments in devotional service. So whenever someone takes up devotional service, there are only two kinds of impediments. So the first one Prabhupada mentions is Vaishnava aparad. So if one commits Vaishnava aparad at the lotus feet of Vaishnava, so then there could be impediments in one's devotional service. And second, he says that if it is the wish of the Lord or will of the Lord. So if we look at the life of our great and uh, guru, like His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada actually has gone through Grihastha life and he has taken sannyas, and then he is very comfortably staying in Vrindavan, serving the Supreme Lord and translating Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is the best situation for sannyasi to be in, where he surrendered by uh, temples of Lord Krishna, devotees of Lord Krishna, even the general public who are there in Vrindavan, they are so much inclined towards devotional service. So that is a very best position to be for a sannyas to live his rest of his life. But what we see, it is because of Krishna's intervention that Prabhupada has to go through so many hardships. he thinks that no, my Guru Maharaj has ordered me to print books and make the prachar in the English speaking world. So then he translates into English, and then he prints by himself, and then he distributes by himself. So if you look at Prabhupada's life period during those 5 6 years where he has really struggled, from the time of sannyas till he boarded Jaladuta. So it was all struggling moment for Srila Prabhupada. So someone, if he just observes the Prabhupada's life, he would think, oh, why he is suffering so much? Is it because of his karma he is suffering? No, one may question his ability or one may question his karma. Maybe he has done something wrong, so that's why he's suffering so much as in his life. Right? He's not able to get success, right? Because if someone doesn't get success, then everybody thinks that okay, he's probably not capable of, he's not pure enough, or he is having a lot of karmas to go through, right? So that is a general perception we have. So here Prabhupada is mentioning that either it is Vaishnava Aparadh or it is the will of the Supreme Lord. So in case of Srila Prabhupada, it was the will of the Lord, that he has put Prabhupada in those situations, and then we see how successful Prabhupada is in distributing this Harinam or Harikatha. So today, even after 50 years, we see there are millions and millions of devotees practicing Krishna Bhakti, and the whole and sole reason would be mainly Srila Prabhupada. Right? So this is how Lord Krishna intervenes in the life of a devotee. But on the other hand, if someone is performing some Vaishnava Aparadh, then there could be impediments in our devotional services. So, and all of our acharyas, they have been uh, guiding us that no one should not commit offense at the lotus feet of any Vaishnava. And if one commits, then one should immediately ask forgiveness. So we have seen in Bhagavatam many episodes where even Lord Krishna is not interested in forgiving a person who has committed offense at devotee's lotus feet. So we see case of Ambrish Maharaj and uh, Durvasa Muni. So even when Durvasa Muni offenses commits offense at Ambrish Maharaj's lotus feet, the Lord Vishnu says that, oh, I cannot help control my Sudarshan chakra. So it is only Ambrish Maharaj who can control. And then immediately he understands that no, he should just go fall at his feet and ask for forgiveness. So from these episodes, we learn that now Vaishnava Parad is a very offensive, or it is the greatest impediments what we could have in the devotion service. So either we immediately or we realize it and then we ask forgiveness to the person whom we have committed offense, or even if we realize that we have committed and then if we are not able to seek forgiveness, then it is said that it takes a long time for us to take. So it is best for us to immediately seek uh, forgiveness, from that Vaishnava, and then accept the mistake what we have done, the offense we have committed, and seek for forgiveness. So this is what Prabhupada is mentioning, especially in the purport here. And then further, uh, Sukadeva Goswami explains that no, Prince or King Priyavrata is not an ordinary person. Under the guidance of Narad Muni, he has achieved great transcendental knowledge and great perfection. But because Swayambhuva Manu didn't had anyone to take over as a king, then he had to come to Priyavrata asking him to take uh, the kingly position and rule the world. But Priyavrata didn't accept it immediately. He told, no, I don't want to go through this again, this material responsibilities. You just imagine you want to complete 16 rounds in the morning, and you have completed 15 rounds, and 16th round you're chanting, and then someone comes and says, "Oh, there is a service. No, you should immediately come and address this service." So how one would feel, because the person has taken so much of austerity, right? Getting up early in the morning and trying to finish the 16 rounds before, probably, let's assume, 6 o'clock. So he would have got up at 3 o'clock, taken bath, and trying to finish his rounds. And then immediately when someone comes and says, "No, you need to address this service," it becomes very, very difficult, for that person to live that half a round. No, he's on 15th, 16th round, and then he wants to. His mindset could be like, "Okay, let me complete this." Even forcefully, also, if you try to take that person, one hand he would be having in mala and trying to complete that, and probably trying to talk to you, or address with the other hand, or doing some seva with the other hand. So here we see Priyavrata. No, he has been doing austerities for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. You know, so King Uttanpad, till Prachetas, we have seen so much of lineage, and through all this lineage time, King Priyavrata is doing all the austerities. And at this point of time, Swayambhuva Manu is coming and saying, "No, no, we need you here. You have to take up the responsibility of ruling the world." But King Priyavrata is, immediately he rejects it. He is not convinced. Uh, so Sukadeva Goswami mentions here that no, Swayambhuva Manu is trying to convince Priyavrata through scriptural injunctions, but Priyavrata is not at all moved. He doesn't like the idea of going back and taking material responsibility, where he is at the position of Uttam Adhikari. No, he is self-realized. He is Atmaram. So then Sukadeva Goswami mentions that now finally uh, Lord Brahma has to come. So Lord Brahma, who is the father of Swayambhuva Manu, who is actually grandfather of uh, King Priyavrata, he has to come down to actually uh, to actually uh, convince him in taking this worldly kingly positions. So finally, we see descriptions of Lord Brahma, who is accompanied by all, uh, you know, uh, residents of planets like Siddhaloka, Gandharvaloka, Chanaraloka, and great sages and many demigods, including Lord Shiva. So they're all present in this venue in Gandhamadana Hill, where King Priyavrata was performing his austerity. So we see King Priyavrata, along with his Guru Narad Muni, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and all the important personalities, sages, they've all assembled here, to trying to convince King Priyavrata to take up to this kingly position. So now finally Brahma has to come, and then he speaks, telling that, "Oh Priyavrata, one has to follow the instructions of seniors, right? Because we see Swayambhuva Manu is his father. So Lord Brahma is saying that no, you have to adhere to the instructions of this. Of course, Narad Muni is Guru, and who is also instructing. And of course, Narad Muni always trains devotees to be celibate and not to get involved in material responsibilities, and quickly do the tapasya and realize the Supreme Lord. So here Lord Brahma, he tells, there's a beautiful verse uh, which gives a lot of instructions for us also. He says, "Na tasya kaschit tapasa vidyaya va, na yoga virena manu sayava, naivartha dharma partha savotava, kritam vihantu tanu bruhut vibhuya." So he's telling this uh, Kritam, like which is the order of the Supreme Lord, one cannot ignore or one cannot uh, one cannot just ignore or one cannot avoid basically the orders of Supreme Personality. So it's telling Natasya Kaschit Tapasa Vidya. So any person out of his tapasya, out of his austerity, vidya, out of his education, na yoga virena, out of his yoga practice, or out of his virena, personal strength, or out of his manisya, out of his intelligence, or out of his material opulence, or out of his following the dharma, one cannot avoid the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So indirectly, Lord Brahma is telling, you may think that you have done performed lot of tapasya, you have lot of knowledge, you have lot of siddhi, you have lot of strength, you have lot of intelligence, you are following the dharma to the perfection. But all these practices, cannot avoid a person to follow the order of the Supreme Personality of God. So he says that no, of course, the supreme responsibility of any person is to develop love for the Supreme Lord. So that is the aim of anyone's birth. But similarly or simultaneously, when one is trying to re-establish the relationship with the Supreme Lord, he cannot ignore his parallel responsibilities towards society, towards family, towards other living being entities, right? So one cannot say that I'm not interested in serving other people. I'm interested only in serving the Supreme Lord, right? So a matured devotee would not have that mindset. So the Lord Brahma is telling that anyone who is connected to the Supreme Lord cannot ignore his parallel responsibilities towards other living entities. So this is the main point which is trying to put forward towards Priyavrata. So here in further shlokas we'll see how Lord Brahma is trying to convince King Priyavrata or Prince Priyavrata to become King Priyavrata. So this is the first statement or first argument Brahma is saying that nobody can escape. According to your karma, according to your body, you are given certain position, or by the will of the providence, you are put into a certain situation, which is the will of the Supreme Lord, and you cannot avoid. So similarly, studying that because you possess so many things, you cannot say that you want to avoid the will of the Supreme Lord. And what is the will of the Supreme Lord? The will of the Supreme Lord is that you take the position of king. Right? We see Bhoktaram Vignatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that he is the Bhoktara, right? So, and he is Sarvaloka Maheshwara, and he is Shuhudam Sarva Bhutana. He is a well-wisher of all the living entities. So, whatever Lord Krishna, the Supreme Lord, wills, then that is for the good of the living entity and for the whole universe, right? So, in this case, because nobody is able to find a better qualified person than King Priyavrata or Prince Priyavrata. So the Supreme Lord wants Prince Priyavrata to take up the position of a king. So one cannot say that no, I'm a great elevated devotee, I don't want to take the responsibility. So this is what we need to understand. So we may be progressing in our devotional service very nicely for probably 5, 10, 15, 20 years. But we cannot ignore our parallel responsibilities. We cannot say that if your wife asks, where is the money to, what to say, give the tuition fee or school fee for the kids, one cannot say, no, Krishna will take care, and he cannot be ignorant of his other responsibilities. Or one cannot be ignorant towards other living entities or their parents or other members in the society. So one has to adhere and fulfill all the responsibilities. In fact, when one becomes more connected to the Supreme Lord, one has more enthusiasm in fulfilling his responsibilities very nicely because he's doing that as a service for Lord Krishna. So he thinks that this is the service I'm being given by the Supreme Lord. This is how he wants me to serve. So let me do it to the fullest, to my complete ability, so that I can satisfy him, so that he becomes very much satisfied and happy with me following my dharma. Alright? So one should not think that only by adhering to devotional service, like, oh, I just want to do personal seva to the Lord. No, I don't want to. So someone says, there is a cleaning seva. No, you need to wash probably the bathrooms or you need to clean the temple. Some one should not think that okay, these are not the things I want to do. I just want to do personal service to the Supreme Lord. I'm interested in doing garlands or personal seva to the Lord. I want to do abhishekam to the Lord. Right? So this is not right. This is what no, Lord Brahma also is telling, that one who is matured enough, he cannot avoid the orders of the Supreme Lord, and he has to fulfill uh, all his parallel duties also. Of course, the goal is to ultimately achieve the Supreme Lord. But when we are connected to the Supreme Lord, then we also understand that how other living entities are also connected to the Supreme Lord, and how it is our responsibility to actually look after them, right? So be it your parents, children, or your friends, or any other person in this world. No, it is a devotee is very, very loving towards anyone. So he doesn't take pride that okay, why should I waste time in giving him time or serving him? So let me take this time and do some personal service to the Supreme. Right? So this is what, of course, Priyavrata is not in that mood, but we can think that no, he's so stubborn in not giving his austerities, breaking his tapasya. That is why he's called Priya Vrata. So he has taken the Vrata of serving the Supreme Lord, and that Vrata is very Priya to him. Right? So such a beautiful name, King Priyavrata is having because of his nature of um, being very, very much lovable to his Vrata of serving Supreme Lord. So here we see Lord Brahma is giving different reasons for him to convince, and then he says that someone who is controlled, he's having self-control. It doesn't matter whether he is a sannyasi or whether he is a grahastha or whether he is a king. So if someone is having control over his senses, then he is at best situation. So even a brahmachari who is not able to control his senses is not better than a king. A king who is living with his wife, children, having a kingdom, having so much of opulence, but still having control in his senses. So there is one beautiful story, I think, which many of us would know. But still, in this context, I would repeat. So there were two brahmacharis. So brahmacharis are supposed to live a very celibate life. So they have a lot of restrictions in interacting with women, right? So, but there was a time when two brahmacharis, they were trying to go to their ashram. So they were walking through, and they were passing a river. Then they see that there is this woman who is pregnant and who is not able to cross over the river. Then there is a one brahmachari who's senior to the other. Then he picks up the woman in his arms, and then he helps her cross the river, and then they move ahead. And this other brahmachari, he becomes so infuriated that how being a brahmachari, and he's such a senior brahmachari, how can he touch a woman? Not only touching a woman, he's carrying her, and then he has helped her to cross the river. So when they reach ashram, he becomes very furious and he asks, "No, this is not this behavior of yours doesn't suit your nature or your position. No, how can you do it? Then that senior brahmachari says that, no, I have carried her just across the river for few distance or for few time, but you have been carrying her all the way till ashram. So it is you who have been carrying her in your mind for a longer time. I have forgotten her. No, once I have seen that, no, I should help her. She is in need. I have just forgotten, but you have been carrying her in your mind, and you have got it into the ashram also. So we can understand that, no, here Lord Brahma is saying that, no, you have controlled your senses very nicely. So you are very much qualified to do anything. So what to speak of Grihastha, right? So someone who is not able to control his senses, for a person to get married and live a married life is very, very difficult, because then what happens? Because in Grihastha ashram there is a license to enjoy in a regulated way. But a person who is not having sense control, then he enjoys grihastha ashram unregulated. So he becomes grahamedi. He doesn't become grihastha. Grihastha means living a family life with a wife and children in a regulated manner where everybody is progressing in Krishna consciousness. But someone who is not having control over senses, then they live a life of Grihamedi where they're taking the advantage of wife and children and they're enjoying the life forever, and they don't have any goal of surrendering to the Supreme Lord. Right? So Lord Brahma is saying, so you're already control your senses. So you're the best person. So it doesn't matter whether you're living in forest or in Vaikuntha or taking up a kingly position. So you can very well, manage. You can still be Krishna conscious. Uh, you need not get affected by the material dualities. So you can, very well you are qualified to take up to this kingly position. So after this, we see that Priyavrata is convinced. Of course, there's so many things which Lord Brahma discusses. He talks about this six co-wives, all our senses and mind. He say that if someone can live with their wives, uh, then they are ready to go outside, right? So it is like if king is there and if there is enemy outside, so if he doesn't learn how to fight, then he cannot go outside, because without learning to fight, if he goes outside, then he'll be killed. He'll be finished. So someone who wants to enter Grihastha ashram, then he has to learn how to control. If he's not able to control, then he will be killed outside. So he cannot survive with the enemies. So this is the same example which Lord Brahma also gives, that someone who is able to control their senses, then they can live with any wife. So living with these six wives is more important. So if you have one is able to live with these six wives, then externally one can live with wives. So that is what Lord Brahma is trying to give an analogy or a way to convince King Priyavrata. So at the end, King Priyavrata gets convinced, and then he takes up to the kingly position. And once, then Lord Brahma, who has taken up this responsibility of convincing King Priyavrata. So once he gets convinced, then Lord Brahma goes back to his abode. Swayambhu Manu is very happy that he got his son to become king, and he's very happy that he need not be entangled in the material world. And then he happily renounced, and then King Priyavrata, he takes up to the kingly position, and we see that King Priyavrata, he gets married. So he gets married to uh, Bharishmati. There are two wives. So through Bharishmati, he gives he begets 10 sons and one daughter. And out of 10 sons, there are three sons who are celibate, who don't choose the Kshatriya Dharma. So they become Brahmachari, Naishtika Brahmachari. and other seven will see how they would rule. And from second wife, Priyavrata would have three sons, Uttama, Tamasa, Raivata. And we see that in further chapters or further cantos, all these three sons will become subsequent Manus. So Swayambhuva Manu is a Manu in this Manvantara. So after Swayambhuva Manu, then these three sons would become subsequent Manus, third, fourth, and fifth Manus of the respective Manvantaras. So we can see how great is Priyavrata, that he is begetting childrens who are becoming Manus, not one, but three Manus. So we can understand the greatness of King Priyavrata. And we see the descriptions how King Priyavrata rules for about 1100 million years. And during this time, there is one episode which is mentioned in this very chapter in the end, that Priyavrata didn't like how the sun is giving light. So he observes that when sun is giving light, for example, in this earthly planet, so when sun is giving light to one hemisphere or one part of the globe, the other part of the globe is in darkness. So this Priyavrata didn't like it. So then what he did, along with the sun, he also took up a chariot and he started revolving around the universe to give light to the other half of the universe. So where sun is giving, there is sunlight. But where sun is not giving, there is darkness. So compensate that, Priyavrata is revolving in his chariot to give light. So this is what it is mentioned. And when he is revolving in his chariot, so he creates seven oceans and seven islands in this Bhumandala, which is Jambadeep and other islands. So we'll see all these descriptions in the subsequent chapters. And the seven sons. So Priyavrata is having 13 sons. Out of 13, three are Naishtika Brahmachari, and other three are the Manus who become Manus in subsequent Manvantaras. And the remaining seven, each of them would be given each island to rule. And ultimately, after this 1100 million years, King Priyavrata also realizes that no, where I have spent so much of time in this material responsibilities, now I have to give up and concentrate on my devotional service. And then he gives this seven islands. So basically, he has already divided this Bhumandala into seven islands surrounded by seven oceans. So each of the island he gives to each of his sons, and then finally he renounces. So this is where the chapter ends. So I will stop here. So if anybody is having any questions or comments, we can take.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, am
Prabhuji.
I audible?
Yes, Prabhu,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're
Okay.
audible,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Danda Pranam, Prabhuji.
So there was a long pause, so I was really afraid if I have lost.
Am I audible, Prabhuji?
Yeah, Prabhu, you're audible.
Yes, bro. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Danda Pranam. Thank you so much for this most amazing class. Started with the new canto. So you made it so interesting and beautiful, especially by telling the entire beginning of Bhagavatam up to here and also ahead. Thank you very much. Prabhu, I had a small question. You mentioned about Priyavata as Atmaram. How do we understand this? Generally, I don't know, probably it's my wrong understanding. We consider Lord as the Atmaram and everybody else is connected to the Lord. I don't know, somehow I understood Atmaram as a concept more connected with the Mayavadi principle. How do we understand this when an individual soul is considered to be an Atmaram? Maybe it's a wrong question. I don't know. Maybe my wrong understanding. Thank you, Prabhu.
So You're right in saying that no, the Supreme Lord is addressed as Atmaram because he's self-satisfied. So we see all the great devotees of the Supreme Lord, they also imbibe all the good qualities of the Supreme Lord. And one of that is Atmaram. So Atmaram means one is satisfied. So he doesn't need anything else to be satisfied or to be happy. So because we see Priyavrata Maharaj has been doing tapasya for so many thousands and thousands of years under the guidance of Narad Muni. So that's why here Parikshit Maharaj is questioning that a person like Priyavrata who is Atmaram, how did he take up to the household life? So in that context, Parikshit Maharaj, he mentions that Priyavrata is Atmaram. So ultimately, in our life also as a sadhaka, it is our goal to become Atmaram. It is our goal to become satisfied. So here we see, a person who has been performing tapasya for thousands of years, and then Lord Brahma comes and says, "Go to married life." But such a great, no, it is just viparita. No, it is just a opposite to a person who is satisfied with his devotional service, performing devotional service. But still, because he's Atmaram, he picks up that responsibility and understands that no, this is what I have to do. So similarly, in our life also, whatever may come, we have to be Atmaram. Atmaram means being satisfied. Atmaram is not being happy. That is a misunderstanding. We should not think Atmaram means being happy. Of course, one part is when you become Atmaram, when you be self satisfied, then you become happy. That is there. But that is residual of it. But we need to understand that we have to become satisfied in any situation. So that is, as a Satik also, that is our goal, and that is a wonderful quality of the Supreme Lord. And Priyavrata is such a great exalted devotee, so obviously he's addressed with this Atmaram adjective, which is very, very much apt for his qualification. I hope that answers Paul.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for wonderful class, Prabhu. Nicely you prelude that
Hare
Bhagavatam
Krishna.
like a canto wise, and you explained and rightly just flow into that fifth canto and about the Priyavartana pastimes. So it was very nice class, Prabhu. I have one small doubt regarding Vaishnava Bharat. You mentioned that. Uh, that Prabhupada says, right, that there's two things. Either it's a Vaishnava Bharat or that Lord's will. So in that Vaishnava Bharat, I just want to understand um, if actually some senior devotee Vaishnava ask certain things, genuine ask, like it's not personal thing regarding the bhakti ask, but we are because of our ignorance, we are just simply um, reject means ignoring those things, or we are not follow that certain things and all. So is it Vaishnava Aparadh? It comes under Vaishnava Aparadh?
If we are willingly telling to that devotee that no, okay, you're asking me to follow so things, but because of my nature and because of my mentality or because of my attachment, I'm not able to perform them as per your uh, what to say, as per your standards. But I will try to follow it as per my whatever capability. So please guide me. So if we are having this attitude, then that is good. But if we are simply ignoring it, where we are not even accepting that okay, this is what I'm lagging, and because of which I'm not able to do, and falling at his feet. Falling at his feet doesn't mean literally falling, but begging him that no, you're guiding me so wonderfully, but I am such a fallen person, so much attached with so many anarthas in my heart, so much of attachment because of my own nature. I'm not able to follow it. So time and time, if we are able to have this mood and if we are able to exhibit this without so because there is other way where people want to cover up in the under the carpet and don't want to talk about it, or don't want to think about it, then that's an offense. But if you are open, you are able to share your mind, you're open to, you're happily accepting, then that's not an offense, because all of us have our own ability to follow certain things, and not everybody can follow everything to all the standards. But the sadhaka has to accept and pray and beg and then follow to his ability. So he should not, in that disguise, he should not do things what he is capable of doing. So those things we have to be upfront and we have to gauge ourselves. So one may have ability, but he may simply say because he don't want to do, oh, I don't have the ability, so I don't want to do. I cannot do. So that's enough.
Thank you,
I
Prabhu.
think Premdat Prabhu can add. It is very elevated topic. So
No, I think you have perfectly said that, Prabhu, that, uh, it's all the consciousness of the person also, it depends the offense, because deliberately doing something and then due to some this thing, but it's better to communicate to the senior devotees that this is a challenge they are facing. And we should also sometimes see the nature of the senior devotees also and act a little bit, because everybody is different. So if we are, we cannot have a single rule saying that, this is the way, this is it is. So it depending on the position of senior devotees and depending on their, kind of nature they have, we have to handle accordingly. Yeah, but as you rightly said, it should be deliberately, it should not be done. And
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
is there any question or comments? Otherwise, I think we can.